Hi guys, so today we're going to look at two different cases for factoring equations. This first one's called the difference of squares. So let's begin. I'll start off with the equation 2x squared minus 18. And it's important to remember that whenever you have an equation, always factor out the greatest common factor first. So in this case, we have a 2 that's common to both, so we can factor out a 2, get x squared minus 9 on the inside. Then, here's what you need to notice. We have x squared for the first term and 9 for the second. And 9 is just simply 3 squared. So we've recognized that 9 is a perfect square. We recognize that x squared is a perfect square. And they're separated by a minus sign. So the trick is to separate them into two sets of parentheses. And the square root of the first term, so x squared, goes to x and x. Then the square root of 9, or whatever the second term is going to go in as the second part of your parentheses. And then a plus sign for the first one, a minus sign for the second. And basically what happens is when you FOIL these out, you multiply the insides and the outsides, the 3x term will cancel with the minus 3x term to get 0. So it's a little trick when you have the difference of two squares. Here's another example where we have going to utilize the difference of squares technique. Now, at the very beginning, you can see that there's a 25 in both that you can factor out. So we're going to take out a 25, which then leaves us with x squared minus 4y squared. Now, this factor that we took out, the 25, we are going to continue to bring it down. So if you want to write a parentheses, an arrow straight down and 25 at the bottom, just as a little reminder to keep it the whole entire time, you could do that. So we analyze the first term, x squared, and realize that's x times x. And we analyze the second term and realize it's 2y times 2y. So with the trick of difference of squares, we're going to write two sets of parentheses. We're going to write an x in first, an x there. So that comes from the first term. And a 2y as the second term. And that came from the second term. We get a plus sign, we get a minus sign. So that's the difference of squares. And we just have to simply write it again at the bottom with the 25 that we brought down. And that's the difference of squares when you don't have just a number. So x squared minus 4y squared, recognizing it as x times x, recognizing the 4y as 2y times 2y, separating them with a plus and a minus, and factoring completely 25 times x plus 2y, x minus 2y. This next trick is for when you have a perfect square trinomial. And the key to this one is recognizing that your c term is a perfect square. So once we recognize that 9 is a perfect square, we check that the perfect square is 3 times 3. And we analyze to see if the b term is 2 times that perfect square. So in this case, the square root of 9 is 3, so it's 3 times 3. And 2 times 3 is 6. So we get a case where 9 is a perfect square, 6 is 2 times the factor, and we can simply just write x plus 3 squared. Just as a reminder, if we actually multiply this out, it would be x plus 3 times x plus 3. So when we distribute and FOIL everything out, we would get x squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9. So here's where you get your 6x from. And then 3 times 3 will give you your 9. Okay, so that's the trick just broken down. Here's one more case of a perfect square trinomial. Once again, you analyze your c term to be 16. 16 is a perfect square. It is 4 squared. Now, just as I go, just because it is a perfect square does not mean this process is applicable to your equation. All right, that's the first step, to recognize that it is a perfect square. The next step is to recognize that the middle term is 2 times whatever the square root is. So in this case, the square root of 16 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So we are able to use this trick. So we write one set of parentheses. We have our x. We have our 4. Now in this case, because the operation in front of the is a minus, we're going to get a minus in our parentheses and square it outside. And just to double check real quick, if we multiply this out again, it would be x minus 4 times x minus 4. So x squared minus 4x minus 4x plus 16. So minus 4x and minus 4x is your minus 8x. And there's your plus 16.